The JBL Tune Flex are true wireless earbuds that can transform. Well, not literally, but they can go from on-ear to in-ear, which is quite unique and the first I've ever come across. Now, these can be found for roughly £90 in the UK and around €100 across Europe. So in this review, you can see if they're actually worth their price tag and how they compare to other alternatives. So to kick off this review, I want to talk about connectivity, and here it's slightly a shame not to see higher quality codecs included. Indeed, you've only got SBC and AAC to play around with, whereas some rival manufacturer offer the aptX or let's say the LDAC codecs instead. Now nonetheless, over here when it comes to actually connecting up to my smartphone, whereby I've got a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, I had no problems whatsoever, be it in terms of the overall Bluetooth range or indeed in terms of video lag or lip sync delay. Better still, both earbuds operate on a master driver configuration. In other words, they can be used independently from each other in a mono format. And then when you are switching back to a stereo format, the switch is absolutely seamless and therefore means that you've got no sort of delay either. It's very much impressive to see this sort of behavior in these earbuds, and in this respect, JBL should be commended. So with that in mind, let me get on to sound quality. Now there are a few things I should point out. First off, there is a comprehensive EQ that can be selected through the app, and in this respect I had my own EQ preset, which I'll share further down in this video. Then I also should mention that these earbuds house a 12mm dynamic driver and also have a frequency range of 20Hz all the way up to 20 kHz. Now in terms of my preferences, I actually preferred using them in terms of their in-ear design, in other words the sealed preset that you can select through the app. If, however, you prefer an on-ear design, you might want to select the appropriate option. Now, with that in mind, let me get on to the sound frequency range, and starting off with the sub-bass tones. Now here, even though I selected the in-ear preset and used them in their in-ear mode, I actually found that the sub-bass extension was a little bit lackluster. Despite a lot of bass coming across in the mid-bass frequencies, the sub-bass tones didn't really extend all that well. Comparing it to the likes of the Jabra Elite 75T or the creative Outlier Air V3 or the Outlier Pro, they just really can't compete. However, in terms of the mid-bass tones, they're pretty controlled, concise, and have good amount of quality and quantity. Of course, you can EQ this to your heart's content, and in my case, I actually added quite a substantial amount to the bass tones. Now, what really stood out for me was actually the overall mid-range reproduction, which is not something that JBL's really known for. They're actually known for maybe a bit more of a V-shaped sound signature. And yes, it's still in effect with these Tune Flex earbuds, but it's not as pronounced as a lot of its competitors. Again, like the Jabra or Creatives, they sound a lot more pushed back across the mid-range tones, whereas by the Tune Flex actually did pretty well. And they're also very scalable in terms of EQ. And in my case, I actually added quite a lot to the mid-range tones, and they actually did respond pretty well without sounding too artificial. It certainly did leave me impressed, at least at this price point. As for the highs, they also extend very well, giving you that sort of toe-tapping feeling, and the cymbals do come across pretty clearly. Of course, in comparison to flagship earbuds out there on the market, they can't quite compete, be it in terms of the overall mid-range or high-end frequency tones, but on the whole, in terms of the price point they come in at, they're certainly impressive. Now, as for its soundstage, it is a little bit of a catch-22. On one case, you have got great sort of instrument separation. In other words, the overall positional cues that you get are pretty impressive. However, the overall width and depth just felt a little bit closed. In comparison to larger sized earbuds out there, such as from the likes of Lypertek, Creative, or indeed Jabra, they just don't do as well in terms of giving you a bit more of that airy sound and one that has a bit more of width and depth. In these, they just feel a little bit too closed, and in this respect meant that I couldn't really enjoy some live recordings as much as I would do on other earbuds out there on the market. So what about when it comes to recording quality? Well, everything you can hear right now is coming directly from the JBL Tune Flex, and what I'll say subjectively is that the actual recording quality is stupendously good. But better still, they actually do really well when it comes to be treated with environmental sounds. I'm going to be a little bit antisocial and face my bookshelf speakers and play back my friend's track, which is from Priya J, titled Like Me. Now the music will be coming in front of me, and if I go quiet, now here the JBLs not only do well in terms of focusing on my voice versus Priya J's vocals, but also even when I go quiet, they're intelligent enough to realize that I am no longer talking, and therefore it shouldn't really be amplifying
the external environment. Now, just for comparison here, the Jabra Elite 75T, which I often use as a reference when it comes to call quality. And here you'll be able to pick out that my voice is coming out very clearly. However, when it comes to be treated with any sort of background noise, so yet again, playing Priya J's vocals via my bookshelf speakers, which are placed in front of me and the volume has not changed, you might be able to pick out her voice a little bit more, specifically when I go quiet. So yet again, I'm just further emphasizing the fact that here the JBL Tune Flex are actually seriously impressive when it comes to the overall recording quality.
So moving swiftly on, we get on to active noise cancellation, ANC for short. Now these earbuds in their in-ear preset really couldn't compete with the likes of the Jabra Elite 75T, which by the way are not exactly renowned for their ANC performance. Indeed here, when I was comparing it to flagship ANC earbuds from the likes of One More or indeed Libertone, the JBL Tune Flex were absolutely demolished in this department. Now furthermore, if you were to use them in their on-ear preset, passive noise isolation becomes even worse and therefore means that the active noise cancellation has an even harder job, and in this respect is somewhat redundant. Frankly, if you're using it in their on-ear preset, I suspect a lot of people might not actually even use ANC altogether, given the fact that they might want to listen to their surroundings or indeed be a little bit more aware of what's going around them. Speaking of which, over here there's an ambient aware and a talk-through mode, both of which are very much appreciated, which basically allows you to use these earbuds and then listen to your surroundings by amplifying them and therefore not having to get them out of your ear each time. So next up we get onto the app, which I did reference quite a few times. Now you have got the battery life that you can see in terms of left and right earbud and also the charging case, the ear tip sound settings, which I did mention, whereby you've got the on-ear design and then the in-ear design, and then you've got the ambient sound control, whereby you can enable or disable it altogether, customize via the ANC levels, or go via the ambient aware or talk through modes. Now as for the equalizer, you have got some preset modes whereby I feel that Clubber might actually be best for a lot of consumers. If however you know what you're doing or you'd like to customize it to your heart's content, you can do so. I really love the fact that you have got a multi-band EQ and it's not limited. Here you can see that I've really upped the notch in terms of the lower end tones and also through the mid-range and high-end tones. This is very subjective, so it very much depends on to what you prefer, but nonetheless it's great to see that JBL have provided such degree of customization. Now as for the smart audio and video mode, this is in case you have any sort of problems with lip sync delay or video lag, depending on your device. I had no problems, but I still enabled this smart mode, which I actually found to be pretty good. Now as for the gestures, it is unfortunate here that you do not have the same degree of customization. Indeed, you can enable or disable certain modes in terms of active noise cancellation, but it's pretty much predefined as to what the manufacturer wants you to use. In other words, you can't disable, for example, the single tap or the double tap function, and therefore does somewhat give you some mistouch operations. It would have been great to actually have the ability to customize it like you'd have on the EQ, but nonetheless it's good that you can actually select between the right and left earbuds and change in terms of the modes. Now as for the touch sensitivity, I did find it to be a little bit hit and miss. Yet again, it just felt a little bit off in terms of what you would find in terms of competitor products, and often I found myself accidentally single tapping it. Yet again, just re-emphasizing the point that it would have been great to have that degree of customization, but potentially that can come in at a later date via future firmware update. Now moving back through the app, you do have voice aware, which allows you to hear back your own voice when you're in a call. In my case, I don't have that enabled, but if you want it, you can do so via this and adjust the level. Then you've got the voice assistant, which you can set up. In my case, I don't use a voice assistant at all. And as for the voice prompts, you can enable or disable them and also change the language. Elsewhere, you've got the ability to find your earbuds in case you ever lose them, and this will play a very loud tone for you to find it, for example, if you're on a sofa, for example. And then you've got a power saving feature where you can enable or disable auto standby and auto power off. So moving on from the app, let's talk about its design, and here I do think they're supremely stylish. They're available in a regular black, white or blue finish, and better still in a ghost edition such as the one pictured. Here this means that you've got a transparent design and you can actually see the internals of the earbuds and also the charging case. This is available also in a white and purple finish if you so wish, and doesn't come in at an additional extra cost. Now expanding on its design, I had no problems in terms of comfort. I prefer using them in terms of their in-ear preset, however they're also available in their on-ear preset. Now I do think the use case over here between switching between on-ear or in-ear is going to be somewhat limited. You're either going to prefer one or the other, but it's good to see that JBL have provided the option, and it's a little bit of a novelty. Now I should mention, however, is that if you are going to be switching between in-ear and on-ear, that the on-ear design is actually quite hard to remove from the earbuds housing. Indeed, here you'll require some nails and a certain little technique in order to remove the very small silicone insert. Furthermore, it's a shame that JBL haven't actually included some additional small size silicone inserts, in other words for the on-ear design, because if you were to lose one, then you're going to be left without any means of actually using them in an on-ear preset. Whereas with the in-ear preset, you have got a selection of silicone tips, although they do vary in size. Now furthermore, these earbuds are water resistant and sweat proof. In other words, they've got IPX4 rating and therefore should suffice for most consumers, but just don't go submerging them because they're not waterproof. Now elsewhere I should mention its battery life, and here with active noise cancellation enabled, the earbuds will last for 6 hours without having to be recharged. If however you disable ANC, you'll get up to 8 hours, and from my own test I found that the actual battery life is actually pretty impressive. As for the charging case, it provides as a maximum of 18 hours, which is also further impressive. Now the case itself does have a USB Type-C port whereby it'll go from 0 to 100% in a mere 2 hours. If however you want a quick blast of charge, 10 minutes will provide roughly 2 hours of playback. Now it should be mentioned, however, that there's no wireless charging capabilities, so it's just something to consider if that's a feature that you're looking out for. So with all of that in mind, it brings me on to my verdict of the JBL Tune Flex. And frankly, I really do love their novel design. The on-ear, in-ear switch is quite interesting, but in my case, I feel that it's going to be a little bit redundant for a lot of individuals. You're either going to get one or the other. You're not going to really want to switch between the two, but I could be mistaken, so do let me know in the comment section below if it's something that you would see yourself actually using on a day-to-day basis. Now if you want my own suggestions, do check out the description below, whereby there's a plethora of different true wireless earbuds, from those that are actually better in terms of active noise cancellation, or for example when it comes to the overall sound quality reproduction, or those of course that have that on-ear design or in-ear design and also come in at a cheaper price point. Now if you've liked this independent detailed review, definitely do drop a like, subscribe and hit that bell notification, all of which are greatly appreciated and allows me to continue delivering honest reviews like this one. As such, I've been Totally Dubbed and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and goodbye.